Thank you again for joining into the video series. We are interviewing faith-based entrepreneurs and investors. Today, I have Mason Thatcher with me. Thank you so much for being here, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Who are you and what do you do?
So I'm Mason Thatcher. I'm a real estate investor, focused primarily on multifamily investing.
How did you get into that? Did you start off with single families or did you just jump straight in?
So for me, I started off doing real estate wholesale and then started buying single family and then worked my way up into the multifamily space.
Yeah, explain to me wholesale. What does that even mean?
So real estate wholesale, what you're doing is you're essentially taking a property and you're putting it under contract. So you own the contract and then you have a buyer and you're selling it over or assigning it over to another investor to purchase the property. And then you make that difference of a fee.
Yeah. And so you went into wholesaling, then you said you flipped some properties, correct?
Yes, and then started flipping properties. So I took the money I made from wholesale to be able to flip and take that money into properties. I then focused on, okay, now I'm tired of having a job, because that's a flipping properties, flipping houses is a job, to I wanted a more somewhat passive income. And so I created an area where I just had rental properties. And then as that grew, I said, you know what would be better than one rental property, buying one quote unquote door at a time? I should buy more. And so I moved into the multifamily space.
Cool. So where are you at? Is this all in Tulsa? Are you all over the place? Tell me a little bit about geographically where you're at.
So Tulsa and the surrounding area, but currently looking at properties outside of the state of Oklahoma. I love Florida, so looking in Florida.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Tell me about that first deal that you had, wholesale or multifamily. You can kind of choose and kind of pick. Tell me about also the emotions, not just the numbers itself, but like what you had to overcome to be able to get some of those deals.
Yes, so I'd like to talk about one of the first deals I did in wholesale. And I have this one that was just so important to me. I had a buddy of mine reach out to me. His father had passed away, and he needed to sell the house, and they needed to sell it quick. And at the time, it didn't fit my buy box. Now, at that point, I was still renting properties and things like that. But I knew a couple investors who bought in that area. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to, one, take care of my really good friend who just lost his father, who needed to sell the property, and two, find somebody who would actually take care of it and keep it long term. And so what I did was I just created a process between those two, meeting them together. And then I did have a small assignment fee of doing that. But my buddy who had the dad's property now still was able to come take a look at it when it was done and finished and completed, and got to see the passion behind the other investor who took care of it. And that just meant a lot to me. And after I did that deal, it really projected me into finding people in unique situations that somebody could truly help them and not take advantage of them.
Yeah, so you mentioned a couple things. A house is a house. It almost seems like a transaction. And then you married it with the relationship that you have with people. Tell me about some mindset shifts or some things that you do to make sure that it isn't just a transaction.
So one of the things I focus on when I go into any deal is to make sure that I have the compassion in my heart for that person that I'm either going to be purchasing it from or selling it from or doing business with. My whole goal is in every situation for everyone to be happy. Now that doesn't always happen, as we all know in business, but I try to keep the mindset of, you know, when I go in here, I'm going to pray with people. I'm going to tell them about my faith. I'm going to show them my faith. And so the way I look at it and the way that I share Jesus is by being nice and kind and sweet and informative, and to have people ask me, Mason, why are you so different? Why are you not like the other investors? And that's when I get to tell them why.
Yeah, so let's dive a little bit deeper into that. Tell me a little bit about your story in faith.
So it's a very beautiful story. I was an atheist for up until 2016. And so my life was a lot different than it is now. And though that story of finding God and God finding me and transition was massive, the things after that to follow were much bigger than that. Once I became a Christian, I just really wanted to dive in to why others are Christians and why they believe, and did they have this moment with God that I had? Was it just like mine? And how do I get that moment back? And so even now I still focus on it. Like, I try to find God in every day, because we all know when we have those God moments, there's not a dollar amount, there's not a deal, there's no other feeling that gives you that feeling. And so that's kind of part of my story, and I try to show that with people, and I try to show the love and compassion that I have with anybody that I interact with.
Yeah. So how do you integrate your faith and business?
By telling people, right? By actually being a witness. So if you tell people as you're doing business with them, what you believe and the principles that you stand on, they're going to hold you at a higher standard than anybody else, especially, let's say, if they don't believe in God. As a past atheist, if you told me you were a Christian, oh, I knew you had a set of rules that you had to follow. So I was going to be a little tougher on how I perceived you. So now I know, being that way in the past, that's how others are going to look at me. And so that's what I bring into my business, is knowing that anytime that I do business with somebody, whether it's a vendor or a contractor or someone at a title company or another investor, that they're looking at me knowing that, hey, Mason's a Christian, Mason believes in Jesus. You know, they know that I'm going to focus more on trying to show that love and compassion than if I wasn't.
Tell me about this apartment complex that you have. You have it in Tulsa. And the thought process and the vision behind that.
Yeah, so we purchased a nice little apartment complex in Midtown Tulsa. It's absolutely beautiful. It was not beautiful when we got it. We're in the transition of changing it. And what we want to do is we want to change the area, right? We want to be able to beautify the area where this property is at. It's one of the only properties in the area that's kind of beat up and tore down. So we've been focused on bringing the property up by doing a roof and paint and granite countertops and new flooring and completely doing the units, but also wanting to keep it where the price per unit, as far as renting at, is cheap enough that anyone could afford to live there. So the way that we look at it is we want people to rent from us and be able to rent for us at a fair dollar amount, where others may not do that. I know that a couple apartment complexes a few blocks south of us charge almost 2 times what we charge on the same type of property for the same type of materials and things that we're doing, but we just have the compassion for others to make sure that it's fair.
Yeah. Tell me about what drew you to residential. Why not do some other form of commercial real estate?
So the reason why I'm focused on residential is, as a child here in Tulsa, me and my family were homeless. And the one thing I thought as a child, like, if we just owned a property, we just owned something, we would never be homeless again. And so as I came of age and went to college and things happened for me, that just stayed a focus. And I thought that as long as I owned property, I'd always have somewhere to move if something bad happened. And it stayed there. So now the way I look at it is, what can I do in Tulsa differently than anybody else is doing? And that's providing housing that's affordable, it's beautiful, and just as nice as somebody who has double the money can pay for.
Tell me about that mindset shift when it came from a defensive play, I need a place to stay if something were to happen, to now what you're doing and blessing other people. Was there a significant moment in your life that actually switched over? Was that a God moment? Tell me anything and everything.
Yes, I would say it's a God moment. It took me serving in the streets, serving in ministry around Tulsa and other states and other places, and seeing people in the same situation that I was in as a child, and bringing back those memories, bringing back those feelings, those thoughts, the hurts, the pain. I served at I think it's called Tulsa Nightlight, under a bridge one night, and we were serving food and cleaning up and praying with people. And I saw a parent with 2 little boys and a little girl, and it made me think of me and my family so strongly that it changed my mind into thinking about me and thinking about them. I'm taken care of. God has blessed me. God has given me so many different talents and things that I have in my life to be successful. What am I doing with that if I'm only serving me? And is that serving the kingdom? And I realized that I wasn't serving the kingdom by not taking care of people.
Who's an ideal person that you like to work with?
Who's an ideal person I like to work with? I have a name of a person that I would like to work with. That's Tim Tebow. So people that are like Tim Tebow, I know it's kind of funny to say that, someone who's focused on really making a change and actually making the change. Not talking about it, but doing it. And so I like people who are one kingdom-minded, people who are focused on people and loving people and discipling people and showing them a true path, not just telling them.
How do people reach out to you?
The best way to reach out to me is on Instagram, @Mason Thatcher.